In this video, we're going to show some nuances of how we teach our quarterbacks to process throwing the corner on rhythm. Many coaches will say that you cannot throw a corner on rhythm, meaning in 1.8 seconds. What we believe is that you can if you can accelerate the quarterback's decision making. The receiver is going to break this corner route at 6 steps, so depending on his vertical value, it should be around 9 to 10 yards. And the quarterback is going to use the horizontal frame of reference, which we call the hard deck, to evaluate the vertical positioning of defenders, and we're going to use the vertical frame of reference of the route stem to evaluate the horizontal positioning of defenders. And those frames of reference are key here as we look at the post-snap development of the route. So on the snap, the quarterback is processing. The first thing he's looking at is if the route side space is capped or uncapped. And what allows us to, informs us, our eyes on that, is it's the hips of the receiver. And you can see that the receiver's hips and hands are beyond this defensive back's hips and hands. So he has uncapped this vertical space in relation to that defender. In relation to the safety, he has not closed the 4-yard cushion rule. So this safety is actually in a dominant position to close and cap a vertical break of the corner. So what this receiver is going to want to do is he's going to want to snap this corner flatter so he can get away from this potential cap threat of the safety. The issue here in this video is the quarterback did not have these accelerators built in because this was before our 4, so you can see he just throws the pivot route, which is a high percentage completion, but we missed an explosive corner throw here on this play. Let's look at another clip here. Here's a clip of our quarterback with these accelerators in this process now implemented within him. And so we've been training him through the next season and through the film on how to process the rhythm corner faster. So here's another snag concept. This corner route is being run by the inside receiver here. He's running 6 steps, and what the quarterback's going to do is first thing's going to come out, he's going to establish the horizontal hard deck, and that easily allows him to see that the route side space of this corner is uncapped pre-snap. Now the issue here is can we evaluate in 1.8 seconds if this space is still uncapped, and we have to know what to look for. So the visual cues again are the hips and hands of the receiver in relation to the defenders in that route side space. So we're going to let the play develop, and on the last step of the drop you can see that the receiver has got his hips and hands beyond the defensive back here's hips and hands vertically. So he has essentially uncapped the route. Now what we're teaching our quarterback post-snap is also, as you see the space, you should be able to recognize the hip angle of the defender. And his hip angles are fully turned, meaning he's in position to close on that vertical space. Now, this is kind of a nuance on the rhythm corner. What we want our quarterbacks to understand, our receivers to understand, is that if you are within 4 yards of cushion here with this defensive back, that means essentially that he can break this thing steep and that defender cannot close and cap that space. That's something new that we've talked about here with our quarterbacks, is how to reference that cushion between yourself and the corner to determine if he's in position to cap. So for example, if this corner was, let's say, had maybe 4 more yards of cushion in relation to the positioning of that corner route, he, with the full hip angle, would be able to close and essentially cap the vertical over and outside space of the corner. So that cushion rule of 4 yards not only applies vertically to safeties, it also applies horizontally to the cornerbacks that could potentially cap that route. Another thing that can help accelerate the quarterback's confidence to take a risk with this throw is the pivot route here with zone coverage. Looks like to the defender that he is actually throwing a pivot. You can see how it causes him to delay his hips right there because he's just watching the release of the quarterback's hands. He sees the route in front. So that's another visual cue there that can help cause issues for that defensive back and allow us to make that explosive rhythm corner throw. So you can see that that receiver needs to understand, his hips and hands are beyond the defensive back. So he's uncapped vertical space. The safety off the frame here is over and inside with a square hip angle. And so we're going to break that angle high out of here. If we break it flat, that corner has a potential to fall off and make a play. Let's look at another cut up here of the rhythm corner here at the bottom of the screen. Here's another snag concept. We've got a rhythm corner here. We're using that horizontal hard deck pre-snap. The back judges our hard deck there. So we can see that the route side space could potentially be capped by this corner on the snap. So we're going to process the route side space on the snap. And by the last step, you can see now that the defensive back here is over and outside. So he's in position with his body to cap this route side space. Okay, once again, this is where that horizontal cushion between the receiver and the defensive back shows that if he snaps the route off flatter here, he cannot cap this horizontal space because of the hip angle in position to break on inside space. So since the defensive back has a zone hip angle showing that he can close on inside space and we're within 4 yards of him horizontally, he cannot make a play on the snap variation of that corner. And the reason why we're snapping it, once again, is because we did not break the 4-yard vertical cushion of this safety. And so this safety, if we break a high angle out of here, he can get over and outside and close, as well as this corner, since our hips and hands didn't get beyond him. So let's see this develop post-snap. So you can see how the snap variation of that corner, if he caps it, we snap it, flatter, allows us to get that completion. Once again, notice how the pivot underneath this corner causes him to delay and hesitate here, because in his mind, he is seeing the release of the throw. He can't gauge trajectory at this point, and so he's tempted to close and try to cap the pivot, and we're able to get that explosive play there. All right, once again here, okay, we're looking at the rhythm corner on a snag concept. We use the hard deck pre-snap with this back judge here. Okay, we can see that defender is just on the hard deck line. So this route is potentially capped pre-snap and then also capped post-snap. We want to evaluate on the drop. So we have 1.8 seconds to do that in. We can see on the last step of the drop, this defensive back's hips and hands are beyond the receiver's hips and hands. So he has capped the route. Furthermore, he has a full hip angle. So that's confirmed that that corner route is capped. You can see now, if you look at the eyes of the quarterback, he is already on to the backside read route here, the dig by the tight end. So he used that accelerator of the hip angle of that defensive back being over and outside and fully turning those hips as a visual cue that this route is capped, and so now he's coming to the backside dig by the tight end here. So he's keeping his eyes ahead of the progression and ahead of the break time and finds the most open space for the completion. Okay, here's another look at a rhythm corner here. So we're going to use that horizontal hard deck pre-snap to gauge the dominant position of defenders. We can see there that the route side space of the corner is uncapped pre-snap, but just because it's uncapped pre-snap doesn't mean it will hold true post-snap. So we got to read the vertical value in the positioning of the hips and the hands in relation to the corner's hips and hands there on the snap. And you see on the last step, you can see that the hips and hands of the receiver on the corner at the 6th step are beyond the hips and hands of the corner back. We can also see that we've closed the 4-yard cushion with the safety. So we want to break this at a high angle out of the break because we're within 4 yards and the hip angle of the safety is still square. So you can see we break at a high angle and throw the explosive play there. Okay, let's look at the last clip here of the rhythm corner on another snag concept. You can see pre-snap, draw the horizontal hard deck, that the route side space of the corner is uncapped pre-snap. The quarterback has 1.8 seconds on the drop to evaluate this. If you look at the receiver, he does a good job here of taking what we call a seam release. So that's a 3-step outside release. And what that does, it allows him to own the outside space on that safety, so he's able to win back some outside leverage with that release. And then on the last step of the drop, you can see our hips and hands are beyond the defensive back's hips and hands, so that is uncapped. Now, as we look at the safety in the corner, you can see that we did not get within 4 yards of that safety, so he's in a dominant position to close and cap that vertical space. So the receiver sees that vertical space is capped because of the 4-yard rule, so now he's going to snap the corner flatter. So him and both the quarterback are processing the space the same. They understand if they can't get within 4 yards of the safety, that they're going to have to snap that route flat. So they throw it on time. You can see that ball lands just before the defensive backs can recover. And that's the key to the rhythm corner route. You have to throw on the last step of your drop, make your decision, and confirm the cap. And if it is capped, then you go to the next route in the progression, which is the read route. If it's uncapped, you throw it. Look forward to hearing your comments and questions on this. Please write those below. Thanks for your time, and hope you join us with our 4 Accelerate Everything.